Happy Tuesday, everybody. Um, Welcome to Coffee with Caregivers, again brought to you by the National Foster Parent Association. Um, it is always a joy to be able to talk with you and visit with you. I just really have a need to say to you how much I care about each of you, love you, no matter if I've met you or not. People of like spirit, of like mindedness, of strong feelings for children and the welfare and safety of children um, are dear to my heart. So thank you so much for that. Um, you know, it's, um, you know me and my quotes, I always have one. Um, so I found this one and it wasn't attributed to anybody. So I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. In a society that has you counting money, pounds, calories, and steps, be a rebel and count your blessings instead. So I hope we can all do that as we go on through the week and start appreciating maybe a little bit more than we have been, the blessings that we have, since we're having a lot of other difficult trials and tribulations sometimes. We just need to work around those things and do what we can do. So my cup today is live, laugh, and love. Um, all of those things are important to having joy in your life. Um, my children tell me, "Mama, you laugh all the time, even when everything was going to what they would say hell in a handbasket. You still were able to laugh. You were still able to find some humor and some joy in things." And my oldest daughter said to me the other day, "Ma, I will always appreciate that about you. It's really helped me get through some tough times in my own life." So, what we do and what we model for our families at this point, and some of you have young families. My kids are all in their 40s now, except for our youngest, and that serves them well. That they're able to look for the good stuff and the fun stuff, and not laugh at people, but laugh with them and help them see that some of what we do is kind of funny, right? And if we just look at it that way, the now's the time I think for more laughter. In fact, when um, one of my sons is a tattoo artist, and that's a story. But well, on my 65th birthday, he said, "Mom, your birthday present's a tattoo." I went, "Oh my goodness." And my dear mother was still alive at that point, and she was listening to the conversation. "Irene, you can't do that." "Oh no, oh my God, you can't do that to your body." And I said to her, "Mama, I'm going to get that present on my ankle. My son needs to know that I approve of what he does, and I approve of the life he's made for his wonderful family, um, and that I don't believe that tattoo is a big sin and some of those things that kind of was of my mother's way of thinking, right?" So I got that tattoo. And then on my 70th birthday, he said, "Mom, you ready for another tattoo? How about one every 5 years?" And I said, "Okay, I'm ready." And he said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "I don't know, but whatever it is needs to fit on the other ankle. And what do you think would be appropriate for me?" And here's this wonderful man who is 41, I think. Anyway, he said, "I know exactly what to put on your ankle." And my ankle now says "laughs often" with some flowers around it. Um, so, you know what? You plant those seeds and look what they do and how they come to fruition. I was 70 years old when my son said, I need to put that on your ankle." Anyway, now we're going to get down to the really good part. Our guest today is just this wonderful, wonderful person who is so and talented and so full of absolutely wonderful information for anybody that's dealing in the foster care system or anything like that. And so I'm going to introduce to you Amber Jewell. Hi, Amber.
Hello.
Amber is
Hi.
going to talk to us today about a really, what seems to me, intriguing title to her topic. And I'm not going to say that yet because I want her to introduce yourself, okay? And just tell us the basics about what you think is important that we know about you. And then show us your cup and tell us about that. And then we'll talk about your topic.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm excited and pleased to come here for everybody who's attending. In your stories, the personal stories that you give, I think I was nodding many times, like, oh, that's a great connection. That's realistic. I love that. I am a social worker, so I live in the beautiful world of Kansas. So it's nice and humid and hot right now. And some people blink and pass it by, but I live here and I've lived here all my life, love it. I work at a school, and so my day is typically filled with kids from the age of preschool to high school, but I did work in child welfare for a long time in the reintegration. And my husband and I are foster parents. We're also adoptive parents, so we have adopted a little girl, and then we also have a son that is 8 years old and very energetic, so keeps us on our toes. And let's see, I'm an advocate for people. I love humor, I love life, and definitely am looking at joy and finding joy in things and clarifying that joy is not happiness, but finding that deep joy. So this is, and this is, oh, I am on the Speakers Bureau with Successful Survivors National Speakers Bureau. This is my cup. I was excited about having the cup. It says, fill her up. And I really thought of this for two reasons. First of all, because I first will acknowledge that, hi, my name is Amber and I have a problem with coffee. And then, so fill her up is definitely something I would say a lot. But also believing in the power we have to fill people up when we might not even know it's empty or half empty. And really the basis when I first talked to you that I wanted to talk about was how we really have capability of filling up other people's needs when we might not know how much is in there or not in there, or realize that we made a difference in there, and we do. So
we do, don't we? Okay, so here's the topic that intrigued me when I read it, and it was attributed to you, and that's why we asked you to come on the show. That, and you've done a wonderful, wonderful course for us on the NFPA Training Institute website on ACEs. That is um, important. So anyway, the it's called, your title was Foster Care Did Not Save Me. It helped me to learn to save myself. And that's just, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of this one girl in particular who we raised from 11 years old on. And this is what I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, because the minute I read this, I thought of her. She's 41 now, by the way, and is she's wonderful. So let's talk about it. I'm dying to hear what you have to say.
Well, I have a lot I could say about it for sure. You know, what started that I'm glad you came across it was I wrote a little article that I had sent, and I called it that, just reflecting on my perspective as a kid in foster care, and how we talk a lot about the hardships and the struggles in a broken system and broken homes. And I never, ever want to downplay that, Irene. I think that's so important to bring to the table. At the same time, I think the way we're going to persevere in our roles, whether it's a foster parent, a worker, or a kid, or a family, is to remember that we have some power and strength in this system, in our lives, in our individual lives. And with that power, we're able to make change. And so that's why I say there's a point where the system doesn't, I'm not going to allow the system and others' choices to take dominance of me. I'm going to gain back that personal strength and power that everybody who's watching this is 100% worth. They have that in them. It's a journey to find it.
Absolutely true. And I just knew that had to be where you were going. You know, a little bit about Rhonda. She came to join our family with two younger siblings, and she was probably 4 years older than the next sibling, and then the next one was another like 4 or 5 years younger. Even I think he was 4 when they all came, and a judge made the decision that the parental rights were terminated. Her father had passed away already at 34 from drug use, and Mama was incarcerated for the same reasons, um, and had a fatal illness. Um, and the grandparents had tried to take over, and that failed. Grandma died, and then Grandpa just couldn't do it anymore. So Rhonda had been the caregiver for her younger siblings from very young. She was a bad burn on one of her hands where she was frying bacon when she was like 7 years old, trying to feed the kids. And you know, when the parental rights things were terminated, and the decision was they were going to go into adoption, she said, and she was 13 at the time. She said, "No, I'm not going to be adopted with my siblings." And everybody was just appalled. And she said, "No, I'm older. They wouldn't really want me. They'd want me because of the two cute ones."
Oh, goodness.
And I'm not going to do that to somebody that they have to take me in order to get the younger cute ones. This is where she was at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so the workers and everybody and the judge said, "Well, what do you want in your life?" She said, "I want to stay exactly where I'm at. This is my family." The judge looked at me and he said, "Well, would you want to adopt Rhonda?" And I said, "We've already told her we will, you know, if that's what she wants." And he said, "Well, Rhonda," and she said, "No, I don't want to ever leave here. This is my family. But I'm going to be the first with my last name to graduate high school from either my mama or daddy's side of the family. Historically, nobody has finished high school, and I'm going to do it." And she said, "I know that my IQ is only 89, and I had to struggle really hard in school, and I didn't get to go to school most of my early life, so I am so far behind, but I'm going to graduate from high school, and my mom and dad are going to help me." And so the judge looked at the Child Protective Services people and said, "This isn't something I like to do, but can you draw up some permanent foster care papers for this young woman and her foster family? Because they're committed to one another. And if she wants to achieve high school with her last name, I don't have a problem with it." And so that's what we did. And, she graduated from high school 1 month before she had her 20th birthday. But she did it. And
Hey,
most
that's
kids
awesome.
wouldn't have hung on that long, right, in order to get that high school education. And she did it. And she is wonderful. She's strong. She's independent. She didn't let anybody, even at that age, at 13, tell her what her life needed to look like. She had ideas about that herself. And, her stubborn streak, as they were calling her at that point, has served her very well in her life. And she's married to a police officer, actually a sheriff's deputy, and they have two beautiful sons. And I'm grandma. She is our girl, our family. And I think about the strength that she showed at an early age, right?
Mm-hmm.
As much as she loved and still dearly loves her brother and sister, who are still struggling, by the way, after they were adopted separately. That didn't happen together either. And I keep thinking, where was that spark in so many of the other kids? I know some of the other ones had it, but we just didn't have them long enough to see some of the things come to fruition for them, and didn't know where they had been taken to. Back in the day, you just didn't get information at all. But I know that some of the kids didn't have that. They just So my thing is, and maybe you can help, how do we as the caregivers find it or help them find it? Is there a way to do that?
Well, yes and no. Because I want to be fair and reasonable here, realistic, that foster care is hard. Okay. And
Absolutely.
we were not created to save people. Even as a social worker, married to a cop, working in foster care, if we put that expectation to save people, we will be disappointed, and we're going to be teaching others, these vulnerable kids from hard places, that others are going to be accountable for them when the real world said they're not. They're accountable for themselves. And so a big thing that's taught me this was when I would hear a lot of, well, I was in foster care where I grew up this way and that's why I'm this way. And then I got to the point where I thought, man, my dad said that too. And my dad, when I lived with him, he was substantiated on child abuse and neglect. I was very isolated from family. I didn't have food. I didn't have bedding, emotional. And I just kept thinking, man, if I say that, am I justifying his? Am I justifying him doing that to me? And I don't want that. That's a boundary I've decided in a healing that I don't want in my life. And so we have to learn to do different. I mean, that's kind of that blind spot for a lot of us as foster kids, that we're like, oh, I know what I don't want. I don't know how to do what I do want.
Right.
And that's where you all, the foster parents, the workers, the little moments that really, really matter come in. There's so many people and those kids you were talking about that maybe you haven't seen the spark, but maybe that spark was there and you didn't know it. You may never see it, but don't keep doing what you're doing with the requirement to see it, because you'll miss the opportunities that you make those moments. And there's a lot of those moments. I talk about when I was in foster care, teachers who would just be excited to see me. I went to church on a regular basis, not because I like church and I was very angry with my faith and beliefs. I went to church because every Sunday people came to that door and smiled at me, no matter what I looked like, no matter what they'd heard about me, no matter how I smelled. They appeared, I perceived it as they were excited to see me. That was that little moment that there was little sparks that they may never know that they were giving. So don't lose track of how much those little things that we do and the way we persevere as adults in working in child welfare can really have long-term effects. That's where your filler up. You might put just a little drop in there, but eventually those drops can get there.
Yeah, it's kind of like planting the seeds, and then you may never get to see any of them sprout or how big they're going to get. That's for sure. And somebody like me who started fostering in 1974, and we fostered for 27 years, haven't fostered since then. Our kids, I call them our kids, are all adults, and into their 30s and 40s. And it's amazing how many we still have contact with. But it's interesting. You're right. I mean, I've had kids come back and say, in their 20s, and they'll say something like, I had to call and see if you were still at this phone number. I still have your phone number. I just want to tell you I'm doing this, this, and this. And you told me I'd make it one day, and I am, and I need you to know that. And, you're right. I mean, we had a young lady join us. She was 13 time for 1 week. It was Christmas Eve till New Year's, because the home she was in, the congregate type of facility, a girls' home, was shutting down their cottages so everybody could have vacation. And they found a host family for everybody but this one girl. Mm-hmm. And so they called us and said, can y'all take her? And I said, well, we're at the limit of the number of foster children we can have. You want to do a waiver or a whatever? Yeah, we'll be happy to. I mean, she needs to be with somebody for Christmas, come on. And so they did what they had to do on paper or whatever. And this was like the 23rd of December when I got the call. So I said, well, tell me, how old is she? Kind of what are her sizes? Do you know what kind of music she likes? Whatever. Because I had to go get presents. I mean, she had to have presents too, right? I said,
Right.
are y'all going to bring any? No, they didn't do any kind of Christmas this year there because they were shutting down. Well, oh boy. So, made sure that she was going to have Christmas, like everybody else. And I said, now, she's going to have to, sleep on a rollaway bed because every bed's full, and we had some family in as well. I said, just this is reality. It's what it's going to be. That's okay. That's okay. We have to have a place for her. So she came. She was a lovely, lovely young lady, and very, very quiet, but very watchful, very observant, and kind of followed me around. And whenever I go to the kitchen, then she's like, "Can I do anything? Can I help?" And I said, "Well, sure. What do you like to do?" "I don't know."
Mm-hmm.
Well, she lived in a place where they went to the cafeteria and ate and they left. There was no planning of it or how to cook it or anything. And so we did a lot of stuff during that period of time. But we had a really good week with her. And January 2nd, they came and picked her up. And I tried to call a few times to the facility. And every time I call after that, just to let her know we were thinking of her and hope she was, being okay, they tell me I had no right to any information about her because I wasn't part of her plan. We were good enough to keep her for a week so everybody go on vacation, but not enough to say, can I just tell her we're thinking about her? She's important to us, kind of thing.
You were not a part of their plan for her.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean.
And so, I did that for like 3 months trying to. I said, well, can you all talk to her? Well, you're not on her list. Oh, so I called the caseworker. Can I get on a list? Well, no, this is a one-time thing. So, all right. So then I thought, well, we'll never know. So forward 10 years, my phone rings one day, and this voice says, I'm looking for the Clements residence. And hand to God, I said her name, Beverly. Is that you? I knew her voice from 10 years prior. She said, how can you be remembering me? How can you do that? And I said, because you made such an impression on our family. And I said, did you ever get any of the messages I tried to get to you, that we were wanting to make sure you were okay, that we loved having you as a part of our family? She said, no, nothing. And I said, I am so grateful that you are reaching out. Are you okay? And she said, I'm more than okay. And she said, I have a request. And I said, okay. She said, I'm married and I have 2 children, and we're going to be moving to another state. And I've been telling my husband that the only reason why I know what a family looks like and how a man and a woman should be to each other, a man and a wife, a father and a mother should be to each other, is because of the week I spent with your family. Mm-hmm. And my husband wants to meet you.
Oh,
can awesome. We do that? And I said, well, when do you want us to meet us somewhere? You want us to meet you? You want to come back out here to the house? We were still in the same place. She said, can we? And I said, certainly. So that next Sunday afternoon, here they came. Yep. And her husband said, I just had to meet the people who made this kind of difference in my wife's life in 1 week. So whenever I talk to foster parents and they're, like pulling their hair out or saying, I don't think I'm reaching this kid, I said, you will never know.
Right.
You will oftentimes never know what you really planted, what you really did for them. And I said, if you are lucky enough to get contact with some of these kids years later, if they can still find you or whatever, then sometimes you get that kind of news. Yeah. And you made a difference, and so if I can make that, or our family can make that kind of a difference in a week,
right,
for this 13-year-old, think of what the time you have with each of the children who join your family through foster care, how much impact you are and influencing them. that they will be able to figure out intellectually and emotionally later on.
Right. You're
So is that, I mean,
tools. That is so true, because you were planting that in her at that time. And you were, when you started first telling me this story, you were talking about some of the things you were role modeling for her that you didn't probably even know you were role modeling. How to cook, how to be resourceful, how to ask for help. You were teaching her skills that she may have never learned. Therefore, you were planting those seeds that someday, and don't have, I always encourage foster parents, don't have the expectation for it to be a certain time for these people, these kids. You don't know what baggage they come in with. You don't know what tools they have, but success for somebody who's been in foster care or in hard times is very different than maybe the traditional nuclear family system that we would see. And so put that success by what that kid defines, not what's on their case plan or their court.
right.
I mean, their people are going to be their people, whether it's on the paper or not. So,
Sure.
in remembering, and I think it helps you too to continue doing what you're doing.
Well, it just like filled me back up. You
Yes.
know, it was like, oh my God,
Yes.
I can keep doing this longer. You know, no matter how tired I am, I can keep doing this. But you're right. You know, I watched we've adopted 4 children from the system, and I watched particularly my 2 boys, who really were, and I've said it on this show before, I think, very, really challenging children. And when the oldest of the 2 left home, he left his senior year in high school because he found out where his birth parents were.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't finish high school and took off. And 3 years later, he came back and he said, Mama, you know, all that stuff you and Daddy tried to teach me, and I kept pushing at it, pushing back. And I said, yes. And he said, and all that stuff that preacher and the Sunday school teachers and everybody was trying to teach me, and I kept pushing back. And I said, yes. And he said, well, I want you to know that I can feel it all starting to come out in me, and I'm going to be a good man. Well, I bawled like a baby, I swear, you know, because it was his time. The second son didn't find himself and have some realizations until he was 31.
Mm-hmm.
So he really floundered
Right.
for a longer time trying to figure it out. But when he did, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And what a way to empower them too, because you have, in the message that you talked about at the beginning of this, that I'm saying is, our roles are to drop in the tools, help them with the tools, the encouragement, that self-worth, and then they have to put that into action.
Yeah.
And that's
So the second son I'm telling you about is the one who's the tattoo artist.
Yeah.
That did the laughs off and on my 70th birthday. So, you know, it's like watching it come around and to see these incredible men now and how wonderful they are to their wives, and they're so good to their children. When we were told by the professionals and the psychiatrists and psychologists on both of them that they had personality disorders, one didn't have a conscience, he was going to murder somebody and live his life in the penitentiary. One of them was not to ever have a wife or children because he wouldn't know how to treat them. How dare you say those things to these impressionable kids at 13 and 14 years old? We never went back to any of those people that did that. But that just dug in deeper into what they were feeling about themselves from their beginnings. And I think it probably made it harder for them to make some good decisions because everybody's expecting nothing from them, right? Only bad. There's so many things that we can talk about in the system that knock down some of the things that we're trying to help the kids build confidence and self-esteem and trust and, you know, all those things, and inner strength, and identify those things for themselves that are supposed to be part of the solution. And then they say stuff like that. Now, you can say it to me as the parent, but not with my child sitting next to me.
And I think sitting there with that child and saying, you know, it's not okay. And because sometimes we protective of children in foster care, that my husband and I, we had a 19-year-old that stayed with us, and he'd aged out and needed a place to stay. Great kid. And he just needed to kind of hear that he could continue to do it and make it and go and persevere. And he calls me mom, and that's totally his comfort zone. At the same time, we can't protect what people are going to say about him to him. And so instead of maybe us trying to be so preventative of what they're going to face, giving them tools to face it successfully. I mean, isn't that kind of what life is about, Irene? I'm sure in your experience, you've had
Absolutely
things that have hurt your feelings. I mean, I still have people that I worked with in child welfare when I was in foster care. I mean, I had a stigma with me as a kid. I had some pretty serious mental illness. I mean, and we have a choice in teaching kids that they have that power to confine or submit to that, or choose to do something different. And that's where we come in with some tools as adults.
right. Absolutely.
I can.
Well, I was just looking at my clock, and I realized that, well, I think we're pretty much at the end. So any kind of parting words on the topic here that you just want to say that you weren't able to get in so far?
Not so far, no.
Okay.
Good. I think you're emphasizing the exact point of, you know, doing what you do because you're called to do it, and you have that passion. Don't base it on what you get on the you might be surprised. You might get more than you expect.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that when you look at the overall picture, I know certainly for us, we've learned more than we ever gave, and we have far more blessings because of all of it. And being able to stay around long enough to watch these kids actually grow up and live lives that are productive, and those few that have had ongoing issues, to be supportive. You know, I still have one that's, oh my God, he's been in prison for a long time, and every quarter I get the phone call, you know, I'm okay, I'm okay, but he has somebody else to call. Oh my God, you know.
That time may come in his time. And, you know, they say that we as foster kids don't remember. There was homes that I was in for 24 hours. I was out of state, I was in state, and I remember every single one of them. I may never be able to get contact with them. I do try. They may be doing the same, and I don't know. So
and that's certainly possible. Maybe we need a directory of former fosters and foster parents that want to try to collect, like we have for, you know, adoptees and birth parents that are trying to connect sometimes. Maybe we need to think about that, because I think it would benefit everybody to know that, you know, you were here, we loved you, and that didn't go away when you walked out the door for whatever reason you had to go, you know, or you went. So that's an idea, huh?
Yeah, it's reciprocal, you know.
Absolutely.
We don't say it so diligently as foster parents do, but we feel that when we leave.
Absolutely. I'm sure. All right. So thank you. And I think we have a cartoon. There we go. We're trying to end the show now, and these are all COVID related, of course, because that's our world right now. But the WFH is working from home. So you see the top picture and what everybody sees when we're on virtual calls, that sometimes we just don't, we've had too many in one day. But what reality really is,
Yes.
for most of us that are working from home, is very different than what you might see on the screen. And so this one just tickled me when I saw it, because as I watch all these videos and get virtual calls and things, I always am imagining, probably not paying enough attention to the dialogue, but imagining what's actually going on in the background. Last night I was on one, and this teenage boy just kept running back and forth. And Mama didn't know he was back there, and he was chasing the dog, and it was just so funny. And finally, she says, "What's everybody laughing at?" We're all like, "Your son and the dog are putting on a show for us." And they were being so quiet, she didn't know he was doing it. So it's fun, I mean, you get it. We had a good laugh about it. So, all right. I think that, again, I have another little thing that I wanted to share with people before we actually close. And I learned this morning. I was talking with the associate director of Pride Training for the state of Illinois, and she, after our discussion, she said, her mother's quote to her that she grew up hearing pretty much all the time, every day of her life, was good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. And she was relating that to education and training for caregivers and for others, that you never know enough. So you've got to keep learning, right?
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to read that one more time. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. And I love that. And I asked her if she would share her mother's name so we could get her credit. And her name is Dolores Jackson Sanchez, and from Chicago, Illinois. She was a RN, ran a pediatric unit at Providence Hospital there for many years, and she passed away 4 years ago at the age of 89. And I thought, what a legacy she left for her daughter. And it was a delight meeting her this morning, but just wanted to pay tribute to this wonderful woman for having that attitude. And I think it's an attitude that we can all share, especially when we know that we can never be the best until we know more, because every child who joins our family is different and has different needs and needs to be approached in different ways. So we never are good enough to meet the needs of kids that come in to the system and to help their families, hopefully with reunification. So I think that this is the close to our episode today. And I want to close it again with please stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much, Amber.
Thank you.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with our friends at United Healthcare. For more information about United Healthcare, please visit www.uhc.com.